On paper, what matchup to you seems to be like the most intriguing matchup for Philly? Just on paper, an entertaining soccer match.
There's some good ones in there. I really think the beginning of the season's interesting. Those Western Conference swing, I believe it's after
gonna be
Chicago,
tough,
it's five
dude.
straight with the Western Conference.
Yeah, man.
And the thing I keep thinking about is that's prime CONCACAF Champions Cup. So there's a chance, there's, I believe, Pachuca and Toluca or whoever comes out of the other branch if the Union advance there.
Yeah.
It could be a really crowded 7-8 game month for the Union. And so, like last year, they dropped a lot of points in that stretch, as just about every team in MLS does when they're in CONCACAF Champions League or now Cup. If they can drop those points to Western Conference teams rather than Eastern Conference teams, that could be huge down the stretch. We saw, they were 1 or 2 games back of Orlando down the whole stretch, a team that they played days before they had to travel for CONCACAF Champions League. And the same thing goes with Cincinnati. Obviously, the gap extended, but 3 points we handed to Cincinnati in between the Atlas legs. So I think any of those Western Conference games could be really interesting. I think those run through pretty much the beginning of April.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like even March after Saprissa,
Yeah.
SKC, Seattle, Austin, Portland, Minnesota, all were either playoff or borderline playoff team last year in the Western Conference. Dude, like we're talking about last year and the grueling schedule that was a 2023 season. And right off the bat, like we're looking at this and we're like, well, how the hell are we supposed to survive the early parts of this season? But like, I agree with you. Like, unfortunately, the matter is, and obviously we talked about US Open Cup. Looks like MLS teams, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to play in that as well. But prioritizing tournaments and competitions, it's going to be the tough part about this scheduling here. And then you're going to have to go through that as well. Like, do I sit out this player? Do I put in this player? We haven't even figured out the depth to even kind of contemplate these type of scenarios in our head.
And I think the one good thing about that is I believe I saw this somewhere. I can't remember who had it, but after that stretch, they don't go west to the Central Time Zone for the rest of the year. And I believe the home stretch in the summer, it's like 9 of 13 games are at home. They've got a really heavy home slate once these competitions end. And, it might not be the quickest and best start, but if they can recover from that well, and if they can, the stretch they had in May and June last year was really, really good and put them back up to second after a rough start. If they can do that again, maintain it up through Leagues Cup, they might just be okay. I know the end of the season is where I was going with this. It's tough. It's Orlando, Columbus, Atlanta, and Cincinnati as the last 4 games of the season.
That's tough.
They're going to need a bit of a cushion before that.
I agree. And it's funny, like looking back at last year, like you said, they did start off slow. But right before Leagues Cup, it did feel like they started putting it together. They go on their Leagues Cup run. We run into Messi Miami. And that kind of changed around the season a little bit. So we're going to keep an eye out and see how the Union kind of manages the scheduling this time around this year.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to note with the schedule is I was looking at both Miami games. They play them home the 15th of June and they're away September 14th. The home game especially, I was looking at, it's the last game before Copa America, and it's the first game after the June international break when I believe most of the Copa America teams are playing their tune-up games.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a lot of these guys are going from international duty, getting ready for Copa America, coming back for the one game, and then going back.
Yeah.
I have to imagine, that's also the first game of the Euros. So you look at guys like Daniel Gazdag, who Hungary played the same day. If he gets the call-up that he deserves, he won't be there. You're looking at possibly 2 very shorthanded teams, despite all the stars. And the same thing in September. It's the first game after an international break, and you've got teams like Argentina that could be playing as little as 3 days before that game in a different continent. So there's a really, really solid chance, I think, that some of these huge names maybe aren't there on both sides.